This lesson is on adding fractions. With adding and subtracting fractions, there's a must, just like we had with multiplying and dividing, which was we must change mixed numbers to improper fractions. We don't have to do that with adding and subtracting, but we must have a common denominator. And that is something we have to have. We cannot really work these problems without it. Alright, so we must have a common denominator. And then quite simply with fractions, we add the numerators but leave the denominators alone. Okay, so here we have one question already with common denominators. So I simply leave the denominator alone as is and add the numerators. 3 plus 4 is 7. Now 7 over 5 will not simplify at all. 7 is a prime number, so nothing but 1 will go into it, 1 in itself. But I could change it if I wanted to a mixed number, and some teachers require that. Either of these answers I would view as correct because it's simplified and it's either an improper fraction or a mixed number. The reason we don't, and a lot of times, the reason we don't add the denominators is a lot of times kids want to do that, but you're talking about you have 3/5, so that is a fraction of a certain size. We have 3 of them, and now we have 4 of them, and we add them together. That doesn't change the size of the piece. So the pieces that we have, say of a cake or a pie or something, are fifths. If we add the denominators, we're talking about tenths. Now we can do some work on the board in class showing you why that's not true. All right, so on the next example, we have different denominators. We're going to have to come up with a common denominator, and in this case, I'm going to use 6, and that way I don't have to change one of the fractions. Now I can use 12 because 3 and 6 both go into 12, but it would probably result in some simplifying along the way. So I'm just going to change this 1. So I multiply by 2 to get a 6 in our denominator. When I multiply the bottom, I have to multiply the numerator as well. So now my problem becomes 4, 6 plus 5, 6. I'll leave my denominator as 6, and 4 plus 5 is 9. Now I see there that I can divide both numerator and denominator by 3 to simplify. It is, so I'll have 3 over 2. It is an improper fraction, so I could also change it to 1.5. But either of those would be correct. In the last example on this board, we have 2 that have different denominators. So we're going to have to come up with a number that both of them will go into. And a lot of the times we can use least common multiple and find out the least common multiple of 10 and 3. But if you're good on your multiplication facts, you may be able to just think of the number that both of them go into. And if I start listing the 10s, the multiples of 10, 10, 20, 30, it has to be 30 as the smallest, the least common multiple, and the smallest common denominator. But again, I could choose a different number. But I want to choose 30. So I have to multiply by 10, multiply by 10. Here I multiply by 3. And so the result will be 21 over 30 plus 20 over 30. And that results in 41 over 30. Again, I know that 41 is not divisible by 3, and so I'm going to leave it like that. Or I can take 30 30ths out and make a whole 1 and have 4 30ths, have 11 30ths left over. And now again, I look to see if it'll simplify, and it's not going to. So here we've looked at one that already had common denominators, one that we only had to change one of the fractions, and one where we had to change both. Now, let's look at changing or dealing with mixed numbers. It is possible for us to keep them this way, and we need a plus sign. It is possible for us to work with them as whole numbers, but there's a few problems, as we'll see if we work these as whole numbers. But it's also possible for us to change them to improper fractions, so we'll do that with at least one of them along the way. All right, in our first example, again, we have a common denominator. So what I can do is I can add the whole number part. 2 and 4 is 6. 1/2 plus the second half is 2 halves. And 2 halves is a whole 1. So I add that and I'll have a total of 7. Okay, on the next one we still have a common denominator already, but let's go ahead and change that to an improper fraction. If you remember from a previous video, we take 3 times 8, 24, 25, 26, 27 over 8 plus 8 plus 5 is 13 over 8. Leave the denominator, that's going to be 40. I know that 40 divided by 8 is 5 over 1 or 5. Again, we have a whole number. On this last one, we have to change. So it is possible for me to just change the fraction part into common denominators. I'm going to use 10 because that's going to be the smallest one that I can choose. And so this becomes 2 and 5/10 plus 4 and 6/10. Okay. Again, I add the whole number part, and that's going to be 6. And now I have 11/10, which again I know is an improper fraction. I can't leave an improper fraction in a mixed number because now you're trying to mix too many things together. So I do know that 10/10 will make 1. So really what I'm going to do is split my number up into 6 and 10/10 plus 1/10 more. Make this into a whole, and my answer would be 7 and 1/10. Okay? So we had to do a little bit of, manipulating of this answer to get the correct answer, because this would not be correct. All right, let's go ahead and change it to improper fractions and then find the common denominator from there. All right, 2 times 2 plus 1, 5 over 2 plus 23 over 5. I'm going to use 10 again. And I will get 25 over 10 plus 46 over 10, which will give me 20 and 40 is 60, and 5 and 6 is 11, so I'll have 60, 71. Alright, I can divide 10 into 71 and get 7 and 1/10 left over. It is simplified. We can check it as we go, or we can check it right at the end. Alright, so hopefully this has helped you understand adding fractions. In class we will do some more examples of these. Really you need a bit of practice on just plain questions before we work to going on to application questions where we actually have a word problem to do with these. And also then next lesson we will consider subtracting fractions, which is very similar, same kind of steps.